Do you think real estate is a business or no?
I think real estate is a great way to lower your taxes and preserve wealth. I think it's an awful way for you to actually make money. Then you take the average small business, maybe you could buy same way you could for buying a small piece of real estate, a $400,000 business. You put some money down and get the rest from the SBA or seller financing, and the average small business makes, let's be conservative, and say 10 to 15% per year.
I have to understand the balance sheet, the cash flow, revenues, the ins and outs of that money, the value of that business now, the potential projected value of that business in the future. There's a lot of moving parts I have to understand. And so at $400,000, you can't likely get a startup loan. Usually caps off around $150,000 for SBA on startups, the ones that don't have revenue that are ground up. I'm gambling on this business because really I'm looking at the revenues of this business more than anything, because it's really ran by people. There's not necessarily always something tangible there. That's why they want collateral. Clarity is one of the most important ingredients on our journey to financial success in this economic system. What we just witnessed is how that clarity gets disrupted when you have people as prominent as Cody Sanchez is in a personal finance and business space online, giving a different take on where you should be investing or where you should be pouring your energy into, and her criticism towards, sticking out a 9-to-5 job in today's paradigm and not taking enough risk. So as a banker, financial services professional, as well as a licensed mortgage loan originator, etc., somebody who's also a small business maker, I have the gift to be doing so many different things in the finance space. I can give my 2 cents on this with confidence, even though I know she's magnitudes more successful than I am at this time and well-informed and has experience with this. I can still speak to this from a professional point of view as somebody who's a licensed professional, as well as somebody who helps hundreds of clients a year in small businesses and individual consumers with networks of 6, 7, and sometimes 8 figures. The decisions made around where to invest your time and money and what place a 9-to-5 job has in helping you get to these financial benchmarks. So she uses the example, first off, of investing in business versus investing in real estate. She believes that investing in real estate, specifically single-family homes, in the $400,000 range is the examples that she uses, which we're going to get into that in a second. She thinks it's a great place to preserve wealth. It's a great tax shelter. She doesn't think it's a good place to make money. And she really thinks it's not the best use of your time or investment if your goal is to, scale up the access to capital or bringing in more revenue. So she uses $400,000 as a benchmark. And this is in contrast to investing that $400,000 in a business, borrowing the capital to invest $400,000 into a small business. So think about franchises and other business opportunities, businesses that might be for sale, and that same $400,000 going into a business versus that $400,000 going into real estate. So she looks at it and says that $400,000 is gonna maybe at best net you $100, $200 a month cash flow on that property, and that's about where it starts and stops. Also not the lowest risk venture you can take on, but it's not a high risk venture. She looks at it as like playing it too safe. She turns around and explains that same $400,000 investing in many different business models, like actual businesses, would get you somewhere between, I believe she says 7 to 10% or, 3 to 10% or something to that effect, essentially tens of thousands of dollars a month in revenue. The first thing I want to acknowledge is that she's absolutely correct. 9 out of 10 times a $400,000 single family home, you rent it out, you'll be lucky you'll branch out, $150, $250 a month cash flow if you buy it right. There's a chance you might even just break even if you're not careful. On the flip side of that, $400,000 in a franchise opportunity or one of these existing businesses around us for sale is likely going to net easily, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month, depending on how you run it in revenues. And of course, if you're any good, hopefully some of that is going to be profit. Here's where the context gets out of place and what she may not have gotten into the depth of in this conversation with Graham Stephan on his show. And this is important for you and I, very important for you and I, who are on this journey to getting to the point where we're making those kind of decisions. Should I get that, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 investment property, or should I be looking into starting a franchise or launching a business or buying an existing business? Very important to have clarity on what we should be doing when we have access to those kind of financial resources. When you can borrow that much, and then heavens bless you if you got that in cash, it's the psychology of understanding why you would want to make the decision that you're going to make. Cody Sanchez missed out on a few things when it comes to the investing in real estate side. The first thing, there's 4 ways you get paid in rental real estate. Yes, there's the monthly cash flow. At that same token, you're getting mortgage pay down of a couple $100s a month to start, and it scales up over time of owning that property. You first buy that property, it's only going to probably be a couple $100s a month at the principal. But if you think about it, that in itself kind of doubles your cash flow. No, it's not going into your pocket, but it's incrementally increasing your net worth and the value of that property, because you're getting $150, $250 a month. You're also getting $150 to $250 a month, paying that property down in the exact same payment. That's the first thing. The third way that you're getting paid is in tax incentives, which she acknowledged. You're getting tax incentives, and that becomes enormous when you're a worker, because owning rental real estate actually can help you offset the taxes of your job. So that's not even easy to quantify, because if you're getting depreciation and other write-offs, and I'm not a tax accountant, but just being so close in the financial space, I'm gonna speak with confidence on this. When you're getting depreciation and other deductions, you're making $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 a year on your job. Owning 2 or 3 rentals can offset potentially that income to some extent, to a great extent, and reduce your tax bill by thousands of dollars a year. That's the third way. The fourth way is going to be incremental appreciation, which she mentions in a little bit more of a negative context, saying that you're only likely going to see a few percent a year in growth in real estate, which is probably true. On average, it's been 3% historically. And in 2020s, that 3 has had a 0 on the back of it. But at the end of the day, it depends on what market you're in and the property, etc. 9 out of 10 times, if you bought a reasonable piece of property, it's going to incrementally increase. If it's $400,000 a year, that means that property is going up, somewhere in the neighborhood of $12,000 in value per year if it just sticks to the 3% rule on a $400,000 piece of property. So you're getting paid 4 ways on real estate that are all accumulating into thousands of dollars a year in income, or let's just say net worth increase, okay? Which net worth isn't the end all be all, but at the end of the day, it's still working positive on your balance sheet. So the next thing is that most people are not going to buy a $400,000 single family home as an investment property. Like, that's just, I understand she's working off the median sales price or, home price in America for a single family home. That's if you're buying it to live there. It's not as an investment. The majority of reasonably smart investors, unless you're in certain specific, high-priced markets, most of us are going to buy somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 property in one of these more attractive markets. We start to make the effort to try to invest out of our market and in more affordable properties with better cash flow. $150,000 to $250,000 in home price in an investment property on a single-family home is going to be anywhere from Mississippi, Alabama to Tennessee, potentially parts of Carolina, Indiana, Cleveland, these different markets that are in the Midwest, the Sun Belt, the South, that you can get a really decent property in a decent neighborhood, even parts of Texas, parts of Louisiana, for $150,000 to $250,000 on a single family. Maybe if you're lucky, you even get a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex if you're lucky. At the end of the day, most of us are not going to buy a $400,000 single family home as an investment property because the numbers are much harder to make it work. If you try to stick to somewhere around a 1% rule, meaning that the rents are within 1% of the home's value or price, then you're looking at a $400,000 property. You need $4,000 a month rent to make that make sense. It's not going to happen in the vast majority of markets in the United States. The numbers just don't add up. You're not even probably going to get 1/8% on that property. So $400,000 as her example is a bit off base for her argument, because at the end of the day, most of us aren't going to buy a $400,000 property as a single family as a rental property. The numbers are just too hard to make sense. So that's another caveat that is, out of balance for her. The next thing the second half of this, if you will, the next chapter of this is the barrier of entry is going to be your ability to borrow the money to get into either asset class, business or rental real estate. The barrier to entry to lending is dramatically different between these two. And this is where my expertise kicks in even more. I don't own a bunch of businesses and I don't own a bunch of real estate. So I'm speaking from, again, the perspective of a banker, small business banker, and a licensed mortgage loan originator. I'm speaking from that perspective. My MLS will be in the description section. If you want to dig into that, it'll be in the about section on the channel as well, if you want to verify that information. But at the end of the day, I'm just letting you know that as somebody who's been doing this for quite some time, at my age, I've been doing this for over 10 years. And I work with small businesses. I do direct, I literally take the direct application and work with underwriters for small businesses when it comes to funding, anywhere from $25,000 all the way up to deep 6 figures in loans. I'm taking those applications. I'm curating those files. I'm working with underwriting. The next end of this is I'm right there in the mix when it comes to, I'm not the actual loan officer at my particular bank that I work for. I'm the banker, but I'm working directly with the loan officer who's working with underwriting, and we're working in tandem on those deals. When I tell you the barrier to entry in lending is night and day, banks will literally damn near pay you to take out a loan on a mortgage and on a home. Now, not necessarily with rental real estate, right? Unless you house hack, which is still a smart idea in most cases. You're house hacking and you're likely going to be able to get in with the lowest down payment and get a lot of grant incentives, etc. First-time home buyer programs if you're a first-time buyer. That's still a brilliant strategy. Even if you're buying the investment property as a direct investment property, you're going to get a much lower barrier to entry. It's not easy, but it's a much lower barrier to entry than $400,000 on a business loan. I promise you. She uses the example of SBA lending or seller financing to get into the business. Now, I'm going to say, drop in the comment section below, how many of you are skilled, knowledgeable enough, and have the experience to negotiate a seller financing deal, likely by yourself, at the scale of $400,000? Comment down below. Don't worry, I'm gonna wait for it. Yeah, that's what I figured. Most of us don't have that kind of experience. I'm not saying it's the hardest thing in the world to do, but without some kind of mentor or guidance or some kind of real hands-on experience, you want me to negotiate the details of a $400,000 seller financing deal on a business. I have to understand the balance sheet, the cash flow, revenues, the ins and outs of that money, the value of that business now, the potential projected value of that business in the future. There's a lot of moving parts I have to understand to make a healthy negotiation that works for the seller and me as the buyer on a $400,000 business. It's not as complex to do on a piece of real estate property. Yes, there's some numbers you have to know. Those numbers are not nearly as complex and nuanced as they are for a small business at $400,000 trying to work out seller financing. That's number one. Number two, SBA is the hardest form of lending to get your hands on. SBA back loans, they're not the lender, they're the ones backing it. The government's backing those loans. That is the most scrutinized, hardest form of lending to get. She made it sound like water in that particular clip. I'm telling you, as somebody who literally does this for a living. SBA requires great personal credit, business credit, existing revenue, like etc. The list goes on. Collateral. They want it all. Even if you're doing an SBA startup loan, which 9 out of 10 times you can't do for $400,000. Let's just clear that up. But even if you could do it, they still want you to have so much in credibility, in personal business credit, collateral, revenues, great personal income. They want you to have it all. They don't want to take hardly any risk on those loans. And so at $400,000, you can't likely get a startup loan. Usually caps off around $150,000 for SBA on startups, ones that don't have revenue that are ground up. So at $400,000, an SBA loan is extremely difficult to achieve. $400,000 on a piece of rental real estate, once you have somewhere between 15 and 25% down and some closing costs, and that property is doing okay with either projected rents or existing rents, the threshold is that you do still have to have decent personal credit, you do have to have a decent stable income, etc. But it's still not the same. It's not the same barrier of entry. An SBA loan or any business loan at $400,000 is going to be, I assure you, once you get over $100,000, $150,000, they want the kitchen sink when it comes to securing that loan and making sure that you have the ability to repay and a good financial reputation and that business is sturdy. It's a lot riskier. Business lending is way riskier than collateralized real estate. Because that means if I'm lending on $400,000, that property has to be worth roughly $400,000. I'm gambling on this business because really I'm looking at the revenues of this business more than anything, because it's really ran by people. There's not necessarily always something tangible there. That's why they want collateral. They want it to be collateralized by some kind of commercial real estate, equipment that's of value, etc. So heavens forbid you're getting a $400,000 business that doesn't have a lot of tangible assets. You try to go get an SBA loan. Even if your credit is good, you're likely going to get shot down. So I wanted to give context on this because this is a great conversation. Shout out to Cody Sanchez. Shout out to Graham Stephan. Wonderful conversations to be having. Clearly, Cody Sanchez is phenomenally successful. I'm not taking shots at her personally, but all of us are circulating this kind of content on our social medias and TikTok clips, Instagram clips, and long form YouTube, digesting this and processing it into how we're going to make our decisions when we get to these points. If we're not there already, oh, if I could borrow $400,000, am I going to buy rental real estate? Am I going to buy a business? Oh, I remember Cody Sanchez said that I could get way more money for doing it for a business. Without the additional context of how the hell you're going to get your hands on that $400,000 to get into that business investment, versus that $400,000 on real estate. The barrier to entry on real estate is much lower. Banks there's way more incentive and push to get you into rental real estate, or single family real estate, owner occupied real estate, or investment real estate of any kind, because at least the property is likely securing that bank. So they're not gonna give you nearly the scrutiny, even though it's not the easiest to qualify for. It's not nearly the scrutiny of a business and the moving parts of trying to get it for a business. Very important, two big things. So again, just recapping professional and personal perspective on it. I think that if you have the skill set or you're willing to take the risk, business is definitely gonna be more lucrative for you. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for the lower barrier to entry, that's still a good investment. And you're looking for something that is gonna pay you multiple different ways without you having to take usually the same level of risk or put in the same level of work into it, rental real estate is still going to be a more attractive vehicle at the end of the day. And as far as the 9 to 5 conversation goes, just closing out this conversation, your 9 to 5 is going to be the baseline to everything else we're talking about. If you notice that these two barriers of entry that we talked about with rental real estate and investing in a $400,000 business, you notice you need personal financials in order to get in on either one if you don't have the cash, which most of us don't have $400,000 sitting anywhere, let alone in cash. If that's the case, you need a strong, stable W-2 job. That is the preferred form of income in underwriting for business lending or real estate lending. You need a strong W-2 and you need to have had it for a consistent window of time. We're not talking 3 to 6 months. 2 years is usually a baseline that you need to have been in a certain industry, working a certain job with a stable, predictable income in order to qualify for quality lending, especially at the scale of $400,000 or more. So I think that she may have she was focused on the revenue part of it, focused on the ability to make a certain amount of money. She missed a lot of important details and what I'm sure was a short conversation around what it's like to try to get $400,000 to invest in property versus $400,000 trying to get into a business, and people getting too complacent, which I'm going to be talking about in a video coming soon, is the baseline to any other form of investing is a strong W-2 job. So comment down below. Let me know if you operate a small business, if you own rental real estate, if you've borrowed or taken out loans or tried to take out loans on either one of these two, and let me know your take on which one you would do if you could borrow $400,000 in either arena. Would you do it in rental real estate, or would you do it in a small business, some kind of franchise opportunity? Comment down below. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. As always, I want each and every one of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon. This is my blueprint for financial empowerment and self-sufficiency. This is my blueprint for optimal health and body mastery. This is my blueprint for mental, physical, and spiritual momentum. This is my blueprint for prosperity.